Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The warship they mocked, until it erased an entire fleet. Captain Hannah Park stood before the Alliance Military Committee. She tried to stay calm, but her hands were shaking. 5 years of work had led to this moment. The large screen behind her showed her creation spinning slowly. The GC is a paradox. What exactly am I looking at, Captain Park? Admiral Lee asked, his voice dripping with doubt. Hannah took a deep breath. This is the future of Alliance defense, sir. The room fell silent as the officers studied the strange ship. No one had ever seen anything like it. The paradox didn't look like a typical warship. Its hull bent at odd angles with bumps and dips that made no sense. The engine seemed too small, and no one could spot where the weapons were hidden. Admiral Lee leaned forward in his chair. With all due respect, Captain Park, this looks like a child's drawing brought to life. Laughter rippled through the room. Hannah felt her cheeks grow hot, but she kept her face neutral. I understand it looks unusual, sir, she replied, but the paradox isn't meant to fight like normal ships. Commander Sun, a veteran of 3 major space battles, shook his head. That thing is an insult to actual warships. Look at those engine ports, it couldn't outrun a cargo hauler. More laughter followed. Hannah glanced at her small team sitting in the back row. Most looked down at their feet, embarrassed. Only Lieutenant Jinta, her chief engineer and oldest friend, met her eyes with a supportive nod. The unorthodox configuration serves a purpose, Hannah continued, turning back to the committee. The paradox represents 5 years of quantum research. Its design allows it to. Captain, we've reviewed your technical documents, Admiral Lee cut in. Your theories about dimensional phasing are interesting but untested. The Alliance cannot commit significant resources to such a speculative project during these tense times. Commander Sun tapped his screen. 5 years wasted, you mean? We could have built 3 conventional battleships with the resources spent on this experiment. Hannah tried again. Sir, if you would allow a full demonstration. We've seen enough for today, Admiral Lee said, standing up. The committee grants conditional approval for continued research but at reduced funding levels. The paradox will remain at the research station until further notice. Conditional approval. Hannah knew what that meant. Her ship would sit unused in a dock while her team was slowly reassigned to other projects. The paradox would become a forgotten oddity, mentioned only as a joke at military gatherings. As the committee members filed out, Hannah gathered her presentation materials. Her dream of changing space warfare was slipping away. Lieutenant Jin approached, helping her pack up. Don't worry, Captain. They're wrong about the paradox. They didn't even let me finish explaining how it works, Hannah said quietly. If they had just seen it in action. They will, Jin replied firmly. Someday they'll have no choice. Walking back to the docking bay where the Real paradox waited, Hannah and Jin passed a group of junior officers who stopped talking when they saw her. One smirked and whispered something to the others. Ignore them, Jin said. They can't understand what they've never seen before. The paradox looked even stranger in person than in the hologram. As they approached the docking arm, Hannah placed her hand on the unusual hull. The material seemed to shift slightly under her touch, as if it wasn't fully solid. We know what she can do, Hannah whispered. That's what matters. Jin nodded. The committee thinks those bumps and recesses are random. If only they knew, each one is a dimensional anchor point. Inside, the paradox was just as unusual. The corridors curved in ways that sometimes made visitors dizzy. The bridge was circular rather than the standard command deck layout. Even the control panels looked different, with interfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. The small crew, just 12 people in total, waited for their captain's return. They knew from her face how the meeting had gone. It didn't go well, Hannah announced, not wanting to sugarcoat it. They've shelved us. Lieutenant Day Kim, the tactical officer, threw up his hands. After all we've achieved in the simulations. The paradox could change everything. They want conventional solutions, Hannah replied. Our ship doesn't fit their understanding of warfare. The crew looked disappointed but not surprised. They had all faced skepticism since joining the project. What happens now, Captain? Asked Mina Choi, the young navigator. We continue our work, Hannah said firmly. We run more tests, gather more data. Eventually, they'll have to acknowledge what we've built. The paradox isn't just a ship, Jin added. It's a door to a new. Hannah nodded gratefully at her friend's support. For now, we'll follow orders. Keep the paradox at the research station and continue low-level testing. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Hannah retreated to her private quarters. There, away from watching eyes, she allowed herself a moment of doubt. Had she wasted 5 years on an impossible dream? The mathematical models supported her theories, but theory and practice were different things. She stared at the small model of the paradox on her desk. The ship that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. The ship that could phase in and out of normal space. The ship that could change warfare forever, if it worked as designed. Her computer terminal chimed with an incoming message. Hannah opened it to find a priority alert from Alliance Command. The message was brief but chilling. Thraxian forces had been spotted near the outer colonies. Hannah's heart raced. The Thraxians were the most dangerous species the Alliance had ever encountered. Their technology was advanced, and they showed no interest in peace. For years they had been quiet, but military analysts had warned they were building up for something big. Was this it, the beginning of a full-scale war? Hannah quickly sent a message to Jin and her senior officers to meet her on the bridge. As she left her quarters, she glanced once more at the model of the paradox. They'll understand when they see you in action, she whispered. And I think that chance might come sooner than anyone expected. Captain Hannah Park sat alone in her quarters aboard the paradox, reading reports of the Thraxian attacks. For 3 weeks, the news had grown worse. The enemy had struck 6 border colonies. Horizon Colony, the largest human settlement in the Outer Rim, had fallen yesterday. The Alliance fleet assigned to protect it had been destroyed in less than 2 hours. Thousands dead, hundreds of ships lost, and still the admirals had not called on the paradox. Her computer terminal chimed with an incoming transmission. The serious face of Admiral Lee appeared on screen. Captain Park, he said, his voice tight, the Alliance finds itself in an unexpected position. Hannah kept her expression neutral. I've been following the reports. Then you know we're losing. The Admiral looked tired, the confidence he had shown during the committee meeting now gone. The Thraxians have technology we've never seen before. Their ships can appear and disappear from our sensors. Our weapons can't lock onto them effectively. Dimensional phasing, Hannah said quietly. They're shifting partially out of our reality during battle. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. That's what your research suggested? Yes, sir. And the paradox was designed to counter exactly that kind of technology. Admiral Lee was silent for a moment, then he sighed. The Alliance Security Council has authorized the paradox for emergency deployment. You will proceed to the Horizon sector immediately. We'll be ready within the hour, sir. Captain Park, the Admiral added, I want to be clear. We're sending you because we have no other options left. Don't mistake this for full confidence in your theories. Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down. As soon as the transmission ended, Hannah called her crew to action stations. The 12 members of the Paradox team had stayed together despite efforts to reassign them. They had believed in the project even when no one else did. Lieutenant Jintai arrived first at the bridge, his eyes bright with excitement. Is it true? We're being deployed. Yes, Hannah confirmed. The Thraxians have destroyed the border fleet at Horizon Colony. Conventional forces are overwhelmed. The rest of the crew filed in quickly. When all 12 were present, Hannah made the announcement. They're deploying us as a last resort, she told them. Lieutenant Kim, tactical officer, grimaced. So we're expendable now. We're their only option, Hannah corrected, and their best chance. She looked at each crew member. This is what we built the Paradox for. This is our moment to prove what she can do. The young navigator, Lieutenant Mina Choi, looked nervous. But Captain, we've never tested the full systems in actual combat. The simulations have been successful, Jin reminded her. Simulations aren't reality, argued Communications Officer Kwan. We have 4 hours to prepare, Hannah said firmly. I need everyone at their best. Check your systems, review your procedures. The crew dispersed to their departure duties while Hannah and Jin prepared the navigation route. They only called us because they're desperate, Jin said quietly. I know, Hannah replied, but it doesn't matter why they called. What matters is that the Paradox will finally show what it can do. Within the hour, the Paradox received clearance to depart. The dock workers watched with curiosity as the strange ship powered up. Some pointed and laughed at its unusual design, others watched with hope, having heard rumors about its purpose. As the ship cleared the space station, Hannah pushed the engines to full power. Despite what the committee believed, the Paradox moved with surprising speed, reaching the jump point in half the expected time. All systems ready for dimensional jump, Jin reported. Execute, Hannah ordered. The Paradox didn't use standard faster-than-light drives. Instead, the ship partially phased into a higher dimension where distance worked differently. They would reach Horizon Colony in hours instead of days. When they were safely on course, Hannah called the crew to the bridge. It was time to share the full truth. Everyone, secure yourselves, she ordered. What you're about to experience will be disorienting the first time. The crew strapped into their seats, exchanging nervous glances. Only Jin looked completely calm. It's time you understood what this ship really is, Hannah said. She opened a panel on her chair arm and entered a 16-digit code. Activate protocol revelation. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then slowly, the bridge began to change. The walls appeared to waver, becoming semi-transparent at times. The ceiling seemed to extend upward impossibly far. Consoles shifted position, growing new interfaces that hadn't been visible before. What's happening? Gasped Mina, gripping her seat tightly. Around them, they could hear the ship transforming. Walls phased in and out of reality. Corridors rearranged themselves. Equipment changed form and function. One crew member tried to stand and found himself suddenly floating a few inches above the floor. Stay seated, Hannah warned. Your body needs time to adjust to multidimensional perception. When the transformation finished, the bridge looked both familiar and alien. The circular design remained, but now it seemed to exist in multiple overlapping spaces simultaneously. The Paradox doesn't just travel through space, Hannah explained as her crew watched in amazement. It exists partially in 11 dimensions simultaneously. 11? Asked Lieutenant Kwan, looking pale. Jin nodded. 3 physical dimensions we normally experience, time is the 4th, and 7 higher dimensions that most humans can't perceive. The ship's true form has always been hidden, Hannah continued. What the Admiral saw, what the dock workers laughed at, was just a shadow of the Paradox projected into normal space. The crew looked around with new understanding. The strange bumps and recesses on the hull, the seemingly inefficient layout, all of it made sense when viewed from higher dimensions. So this is why the Alliance Committee couldn't understand, Mina whispered. They mocked us because they couldn't see, Hannah replied with a small smile. And they still can't. But the Thraxians will. She brought up a tactical display showing the Horizon system. Our intelligence suggests the Thraxians use fifth-dimensional technology for their phasing abilities. They think this gives them an unbeatable advantage. But we can operate in 11 dimensions, Jin added. We can see them when they phase, track them when they jump, and hit them when they think they're untouchable. Dae-Kim, who had been skeptical earlier, now looked at his tactical console with new appreciation. These weapons aren't conventional at all, are they? No, Hannah confirmed. The paradox doesn't fire projectiles or energy beams in the traditional sense. It manipulates dimensional boundaries. Think of it as changing the rules of physics in a localized area. The crews spent the next hours learning to operate their transform stations. Each had trained in simulations, but experiencing the real thing was different. Gravity fluctuated in parts of the ship. Light sometimes bent around corners. Sound occasionally arrived before its source. As they approached Horizon Colony, Hannah gathered them once more. The Thraxians have never encountered dimensional technology as advanced as ours, she said. But they're still dangerous. Remember your training. Trust the ship. Trust each other. The view screen showed their destination coming into range, and with it, the scattered remains of the Alliance fleet. Entering Horizon system in 5 minutes, Mina announced. Hannah nodded grimly. Battle stations. It's time to show the Thraxians, and the Alliance, what the paradox can really do. The paradox slowed as it entered the Horizon system. Captain Hannah Park's breath caught in her throat. The main view screen showed a scene of total destruction. Alliance ships floated in pieces, torn apart by powerful weapons. The once beautiful orbital platforms of Horizon Colony were now just smoking ruins. The colony itself, home to over 3 million people, showed massive damage on its surface. Any survivors? Hannah asked quietly. Communications Officer Kwon listened intently to his equipment. Some emergency signals from the planet. Nothing from our fleet. The bridge was silent as the crew took in the devastation. This wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. Thraxian scouts approaching from Sector 4, reported Dae-Kim suddenly, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. 3 ships, moving fast. Hannah studied the incoming enemy vessels. They were sleek and predatory, their hulls gleaming with a strange metallic sheen that seemed to shift colors. Multiple weapon ports lined their sides. They moved with incredible speed and precision, clearly designed for combat. Should I plot an evasive course? Asked Mina from the navigation station. No, Hannah said calmly. Don't evade. Let them think we're easy prey. Jin looked at her with concern. Trust me, she replied. Everyone, remember your training. The paradox will feel different in combat configuration. The crew tensed as the Thraxian scouts approached. On standard sensors, the enemy ships appeared to blink in and out of existence, the effect of their dimensional phasing technology. They're scanning us, reported Kwon. I think they're confused by our design. Good, Hannah nodded. Maintain current course and speed. Look harmless. The enemy vessels changed formation, moving to surround the seemingly helpless paradox. Their weapons charged, energy readings spiking on the tactical display. They're targeting us, Dee said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. Let them, Hannah replied. She turned to Jin. Ready? Jin's hands hovered over his console. Phase drive charged and ready, Captain. The Thraxian ships closed in, their weapon ports glowing with deadly energy. They clearly expected an easy kill, one strange alliance ship against 3 of their advanced hunters. They're locking weapons, Day reported. Now, Jin. Hannah commanded. Jin activated the dimensional phase drive. The lights on the bridge dimmed for a split second as massive amounts of energy flowed through the ship's systems. The paradox flickered, appearing to stutter in space like a broken hologram. For the crew, it felt as if the universe itself hiccuped. Their perception stretched and compressed. Some saw trails of light where solid objects had been. Others briefly perceived transparent versions of themselves performing actions they hadn't yet taken. Then everything stabilized, but the paradox was no longer where it had been. The ship had jumped, not through normal space, but through dimensional planes. Suddenly, the paradox was behind the Thraxian ships. Then it appeared beside them. Then it seemed to be in multiple positions at once, existing in several places simultaneously. Firing solutions locked, D announced, his tactical display showing targets that existed in fifth-dimensional space. Fire, ordered Hannah. The paradox's weapons weren't visible as beams or projectiles. Instead, spheres of distorted space expanded from the ship, catching the Thraxian vessels inside, fields where the laws of physics temporarily changed. Matter couldn't hold its form properly inside these fields. Systems failed, power fluctuated, and solid structures became unstable. One Thraxian ship spun wildly, its engines firing randomly as its control systems failed. Another froze in space, all power lost. The third tried to phase away using its dimensional drive but found itself trapped between dimensional planes, unable to fully exist in any one reality. From a safe distance, the Alliance command ship Resilient watched in astonishment. It had arrived just minutes earlier with reinforcements, expecting to find only destruction. "What is that ship doing?" gasped Captain Q, staring at his view screen. The strange Alliance vessel seemed to be everywhere at once, leaving ghost images as it moved. The Thraxian scouts, usually so deadly and elusive, were helpless against it. "Sir, I'm checking the database," his first officer reported. "That appears to be the experimental vessel Paradox, under Captain Hannah Park." "The weird ship?" Hugh asked, remembering the gossip that had spread through the fleet about an oddly designed vessel that had been mocked during its review. Captain Q watched as the Paradox systematically disabled the 3 Thraxian scouts without firing a single conventional weapon. "Well, whatever it's doing, it's working." Back on the Paradox, Hannah was receiving status reports. "All 3 enemy vessels disabled," Dad confirmed. "Their dimensional drives are locked down. They can't phase or jump away. Boarding teams report the crews are alive but disoriented," added Lieutenant Yun from security. "The sudden dimensional shift affected their nervous systems." Hannah nodded. "Secure the prisoners and download what you can from their systems. We need intelligence on the main fleet." "Captain," Jin called from his station, "the phase drive performed perfectly. All systems are green for another jump when needed." The crew's earlier tension had turned to excitement. The Paradox had just proven its worth against the enemy that had been terrorizing the Alliance for months. The strange ship that had been laughed at had just accomplished what conventional warships couldn't. It had defeated Thraxian technology on its own terms. Lieutenant Mina approached Hannah's command chair. "Captain, I've never seen anything like what just happened. When we phased, I could see. I don't know how to describe it. It was like seeing through walls, but the walls were reality itself." "That's a good description," Hannah smiled. "What you experienced was perception across multiple dimensions. With time, you'll learn to control it, to focus on the planes that matter for your duties." The moment of triumph was interrupted by an urgent call from DIY at Tactical. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting multiple dimensional signatures," his voice was tight. "A lot of signatures." Hannah moved quickly to his station. The display showed a massive formation of ships approaching the horizon system. Not just a few ships, or even a few dozen, hundreds of warships moving together in perfect coordination. "The main Thraxian fleet," she whispered. "Estimate 327 vessels," Day reported, including what appeared to be heavy carriers and dreadnoughts. The bridge fell silent. Even with the Paradox's capabilities, those were impossible odds. The communications console chimed. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Alliance command ship Resilient, Quan announced. Captain Q's face appeared on screen. Captain Park, we've detected the incoming fleet. All remaining Alliance forces are ordered to retreat immediately. We cannot stand against a force of that size. Hannah looked at her crew. They had just tasted victory, had just proven what the paradox could do. But could one experimental ship, no matter how advanced, stand against hundreds of enemy vessels? Captain Q, she replied carefully, the paradox was designed specifically to counter Thraxian technology. Request permission to remain and engage the enemy fleet. Q looked shocked. That's suicide, Captain Park. One ship against hundreds. I don't care what kind of experimental technology you have, those are impossible odds. Perhaps, Hannah agreed, but I believe we have a chance. And if we don't try, what happens to the remaining colonists on horizon? Before Q could respond, Jin called out from his station. Captain, I've analyzed the data from the scout ships. The main fleet is under the command of High Commander Carix himself. This news sent a chill through the bridge. Carix was the most feared Thraxian leader, responsible for the destruction of dozens of colonies. All the more reason to retreat, insisted Captain Q from the view screen. But Hannah saw opportunity where others saw only danger. Or all the more reason to stay, she said quietly. If we could capture or eliminate Carix. She turned back to the view screen. Captain Q, take your ships and retreat. But give us 6 hours. The paradox will engage the Thraxian fleet. Admiral Lee's face appeared on the main screen of the paradox, replacing Captain Q's. The Admiral looked grim, his eyes tired from days of constant battle reports and mounting losses. The full Thraxian fleet will arrive in 20 minutes, he announced. All Alliance vessels retreat to Rally Point Echo, including the paradox. The order was clear, abandon Horizon Colony to its fate. Around the paradox, the remaining Alliance ships were already turning away, preparing their jump drives. Hannah stood from her command chair. Sir, request permission to remain and engage the enemy. Admiral Lee frowned. Captain Park, this is not the time for heroics. Your ship performed well against the scouts, but this is different. Sir, the paradox can stop them, Hannah insisted. With respect, Admiral, the paradox was built for exactly this scenario. Hannah leaned closer to the screen. Our dimensional technology can counter their entire fleet. Let us stay. What do you have to lose? The Admiral's eyes narrowed as he studied her face, looking for doubt or fear. He found neither. After a tense pause, he replied, you have 4 hours before we consider this sector lost. After that, we assume Horizon System has fallen completely. Understood, sir. That will be enough time. I hope you know what you're doing, Captain. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. Good luck. As the transmission ended, Hannah noticed the silence on the bridge. Her crew stared at her, a mix of emotions on their faces, pride, fear, determination. Did we just volunteer to fight 300 ships by ourselves? Lieutenant Day asked quietly. Yes, Hannah answered simply. Any objections? No one spoke. They had all joined this project knowing the risks, believing in the vision. Through the view screen, they watched as the last Alliance ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the paradox alone in the debris field of the earlier battle. In the distance, Horizon Colony still burned, millions of lives hanging in the balance. Captain, the Thraxian fleet is 13 minutes out, men are reported from navigation. Their advanced ships are already entering the system. Hannah nodded and walked slowly around the bridge, making eye contact with each crew member. You all know what the paradox is capable of in theory. Now it's time to put those theories to the test. She stopped at Jint's station. Begin the final preparation sequence. Jint's fingers flew across his console, setting up the dimensional matrix. Now, Captain. Hannah turned to address the entire crew. What we're about to attempt has never been done before. We're going to push the paradox beyond what we've tested in simulations. What exactly are we doing, Captain? Asked Lieutenant Yun. Initiate full-dimensional alignment, Hannah ordered instead of answering directly. The ship responded immediately. The hum of the engines deepened, changing in tone until it was less a sound and more a vibration that they felt in their bones. Lights dimmed and then brightened as power was redirected throughout the ship. All crew, secure yourselves, Jin warned. This will be more intense than our previous phase. The transformation began slowly at first. The walls of the bridge seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting slightly. Control panels shifted, revealing new interfaces hidden beneath the surface. The view screen split into multiple overlapping images, each showing a different dimensional perspective of the same space. Then the changes accelerated. The floor became transparent in places, showing impossible spaces below. The ceiling seemed to extend infinitely upward. Crew members saw ghost images of themselves performing actions moments before they actually did them. Outside, the paradox was changing too. Its hull began to glow with intricate fractal patterns that spiraled and pulsed with energy. To any outside observer, the ship would appear to be breaking apart and reforming continuously, never settling on a single shape. Phase 1 complete, Jin reported, his voice sounding strange, as if coming from multiple directions at once. Moving to Phase 2. The ship shuddered. For a brief moment, everyone on board felt like they were falling in all directions simultaneously. Phase 2 complete, Jin continued. Moving to Phase 3, full dimensional alignment.